networks don't talk about it. Government can't tax it. But sports betting is a $200 billion a year business.
That's a major U.S. Supreme Court ruling that could open the door for legalized sports betting all across the country.
The Supreme Court is giving the green light for states to determine on their own whether they want to legalize sports gambling.
Tell Donahue his next pick is good for 20 grand, but I need him to guarantee a win, okay? I need a lock.
He's not that fucking good.
No, Tommy, he has to. All right, he has to, or else they're going to kill me. Do you realize this, Tommy? They're going to fucking kill me. I can't afford to gamble anymore. I need a fucking lock.
Yo, welcome on in. It is Friday morning. Welcome into Friday morning episode of Lock Talk. My name is O'Kane. We are going solo this week. Joey, wedding shit is drowning him, so I can definitely respect that. I'm going to run through everything. We've got a lot of college football, NFL action this weekend. Solid last weekend, 10-10 in the NFL. Week one, that's pretty much right on par. Up $8 on Saturday, paid for some breakfast. Make sure you're checking out the Lock Talk app. It is live. All of the games are on there. My articles are on there. All my write-ups, if you want to look more into a visual version of this. Last week, Gino, shout out to him. He was, or not last week, 2 weeks ago, shout out to him. Bet openly. I'm hitting $2,000 saved on the website this weekend. That was kind of a thing that guys were posting this week, so that'll be cool. Yeah, split days for me. It was one of those weekends where you win a lot in one book, lose a lot in the other. Bet openly was unfortunately the one that I lost a bunch in, down to the last $50. Hit a nice little 3-leg parlay that I talked about last week, and then rebounded with a 3-0 Monday Night Football, Hall, Debo, and the over. Solid week last week. I mean, it wasn't anything special, but anytime you don't lose money in gambling is always going to be a win. Let's start talking about college football week 2. It was another interesting weekend, to say the least. Texas started us off knocking off Michigan. We had Texas in our teaser with Tennessee. That was a nice win on Saturday to wheel us home. Northern Illinois knocks off Notre Dame 16-14. I have been wrong about the Irish once again. You hate to see it. Penn State 34-27 over Bowling Green. This thing was 24-20 Bowling Green at halftime. Joey, I wish he was here to answer some questions because I have a lot of them about the Nittany Lions. Mentioned Tennessee before. They win 51-10 over NC State. Rocky Top all night long. Georgia Tech, unfortunately, gets ranked and immediately loses to Syracuse. We had Georgia Tech in that game. And then Kansas loses to Iowa. I said I liked Kansas. I leaned Kansas, did not want to pull the trigger. Jalen Daniels, what the fuck, man? That was a really bad performance. And then Oregon beats Boise State on a last-second field goal. We're going to talk Oregon a little bit. Somebody is going to catch them with their pants down, and I think it could be this weekend. Week 3 for college football is going to kick off tonight. We get an awesome Friday night matchup, Arizona and Kansas State. Get to see Arizona quarterback Noah Fifita on a national standalone stage, 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks thus far. Arizona had 61 against New Mexico week 1, but kind of struggled with Northern Arizona, 22-10 last week against an FCS school. They were down 10-6 at half. State beat Tulane, couldn't cover the 9.5. They trailed in the 4th, only took the lead with 8 minutes left, so that was a tight game as well. Both teams are solid defensively. The total is pushing 60. Right now, it is K-State laying a touchdown. It's actually 60.5. I'm going to watch that today. I kind of like the under. It's one of those bet it and forget it type games. I really wouldn't want to watch it if I have the under, but it's going to be a good game nonetheless. Let's talk Saturday, and I want to get this game out of the way. Bama and Wisconsin. It is the big noon kickoff. This game opened a touchdown, the very, very open at Circa, jumped immediately to 16-16.5. It's flirted with 17. Outside of it being at Camp Randall, I can't really say anything good about the Badgers. Bama did struggle last week. I watched their game against USF. They pulled away late in that one, but I don't see a world where Wisconsin is competitive. They haven't showed me anything offensively. Van Dyke, they had some creativity in the first half last week, but you got to be able to handle these low-level teams better than the Badgers have, and they haven't. So you get Bama coming to town. Bama does have Georgia There's some people in the national news saying it's a look ahead spot for Bama, but I think the Crimson Tide take care of business. Their first big game under the new coach. LSU and South Carolina should be a really interesting matchup. LSU right now laying 6.5 on the road. Total in this one is 48. Nussmeier's had a good start to the year, 600 yards, 8 touchdowns in 2 games. SC defense, man, they have some fucking dudes. It's like it's like watching Jadeveon Clowney back there again. A couple of good edge rushers, Kyle Kennard, Dylan Stewart. They've got 6 sacks, 4 combined fumbles to start the season. They are a problem. I lean under in this one, even with an explosive LSU offense. I'm not quite ready to get there yet. 48.5. It's ticked down a little since open. Or actually, no, looks like it's ticked up. It went up and then down again. So open at 48, up to 49, back down to 48.5. So people are toying with that number a little bit. I'm probably going to stay away. I hate college football unders, man. It's tough, and I've already talked about 2 of them. I've got a few props that I want to talk about. The first one is going to be part of the Backyard Brawl. For those of you that don't know about the Backyard Brawl, I don't know how you don't know about the Backyard Brawl. West Virginia at Pitt today. It's a tight line. I'm trying to get the live one here. Here we go. Right now, West Virginia laying 1.5. Total in this one, we're looking at 63.5. So a higher total than we're used to. This is a 17-6 grind them out game last year. But I really, really like a rushing prop in this one. It's Pitt running back Desmond Reed. I like him over 88.5 rushing yards. He was a second team All-American last year, transferred from Western Carolina, had north of 145 yards in both of their first 2 games, averaging just under 9 yards a carry. Penn State rushed for 220 yards against this Mountaineer defense. I expect a lot more scoring this year, a lot more offense. I would lean Pitt in this matchup, but I've got 3/4 of a unit on Desmond Reed going over his rushing total in that one. Another prop for me here, Maryland at Virginia. This is right now looking at a live line. Maryland is laying 2.5. This is a night game. I'm kind of bouncing around as far as timing goes. So sorry about that if that fucks you up. Maryland, like I said, laying 2.5, 57.5 point total. But again, I'm going with a prop. This time, Ty Felton over 78.5 receiving yards. Dude's got 330 receiving yards and 18 catches in just 2 games. They're going to feed him here. I do expect a hell of a lot more closer game than last year. Tagovailoa and Maryland came in, hung 40 and won by 3-4 touchdowns. I think Virginia keeps this one a little bit tighter. Virginia is a better team this year. Felton last year, he had 40 yards as their wide receiver 3. I think he's going to do fantastic this week. UVA gave up 400 yards to Wake Forest, who we're going to talk about here in a second. But yeah, I like Felton in this one. I would probably lean Maryland just from what I've seen thus far, but definitely more of a prop play for me. Next game I want to talk about, Ole Miss and that said Wake Forest team. I locked in what should be a really fun over 64 flat, even money on Bet Openly. Hank Bachmeier, the Boise State Hank Bachmeier, who has transferred around a little bit. He's had over 600 yards in 2 games, while Desmond Claiborne has like almost 300 rushing yards. Wake Forest has shown they can still continue to play some good football. They took a step back last year. I think they finished the year 4-8. Things did not go so hot. But I think it's more of a feel it out game for Wake Forest offensively. We know what we're going to get out of Ole Miss. Ole Miss is super explosive. In theory, they could clear this 64 point total on their own. The Rebels' biggest question mark is always going to be the defense for me. They've looked good in 2 games, haven't really played anybody. I give this one a half unit on the over. Like I said, I'm getting even money on it, so I like it. And I've got to get even money on these because I am paying up for this one. This game, UCF TCU, it's a 6:30 kickoff on Fox here in the Central Time Zone. TCU laying a point, nothing crazy. Total 62.5. Again, I'm looking at a prop here. -190, -200. If you really want to hold your nose, running back RJ Harvey, man, he's found the end zone 6 times for UCF in 2 weeks. Again, I'm paying up for this, but you see -250s for guys that have scored once or twice. He scored 6 times, and I don't respect the TCU defense enough to keep them completely out of the end zone. We've got a 62.5 point total. So Vegas doesn't think they stay out of the end zone. This just feels too good to pass up. I've got 1.25 on it. Again, it's really kind of a hold your nose type bet. Some other notes here for Saturday. Florida State favored again, this time home against Memphis. Boston College at Mizzou. This is going to be an interesting game. Obviously, I've been big on Boston College thus far. I just can't do it. Shout out Bill O'Brien, though. Bill O'Brien getting Boston College ranked immediately is awesome. Last week, Thomas Castellanos went 9 of 10, 234, 4 touchdowns. They played Duquesne, so I'm not going to get super excited. This is going to be Boston College's toughest game of the year, and I don't think it's really going to be all that close. Tigers use a pair of tune-up games, both shutouts. Mizzou's good. They just kind of figured out their depth pieces through the first couple of weeks of the season. This is the first time we're really going to see that offense cook, as in Brady Cook, quarterback, Nate Noel, App State transfer at running back. We talked about him coming in. He's really kind of a bell cow back. And then they get that Luther Burden III, probably one of, if not the best wide receiver in the country, laying this number on the road. So right now, looking at Missouri, I didn't have that one in here. So Missouri is heavily favored in this one, which you kind of expect. You're looking at the, I think, number 6 team in the country right now, a team that really has not had any sort of issues out of conference. They're laying 16.5. So similar line to the Wisconsin and Bama game, except Missouri's at home in this one. Total is 54. I don't hate the total. I do think Boston College is creative enough to, and Castellanos is dynamic enough to move the football against a really good Missouri defense. I just can't bet against Missouri. I like Boston College, obviously, been a big fan of theirs, but I just can't get myself to do it. I do think the Tigers probably do roll in that game. Next one, a game that I really, really want to talk about, Oregon and Oregon State. Weird that we're playing this game in September. We'll get that out of the way right away. But personally, I see Oregon State as the livest dog on the board this week. I took them plus 17, full unit, minus 110 on Bet Openly, because it is sitting plus 16.5 at a lot of places. I just really wanted that extra half point. And you don't really have to buy it in a sense. Oregon State's 1-2 punch at running back. They got a 6th-year senior, Griffin, Anthony Hankerson, 500 yards total, 6 touchdowns between these two guys. Boise State rushed for 221 yards against Oregon last week. Excuse me. That's how they stayed in the game. I love the Beavers in this spot. They're at home. First time that they're both out of conference. It's a non-conference game. I'm happy that the rivalry continues. Also, big shout out to Pac-12. The Pac-12 is back, bringing out a bunch of Mountain West teams. We'll see if they dabble in the Big West for basketball. It's hard. It's hard doing the Big East model where you just don't have a full football conference. It just never seemed to work out. But anyways, back to Oregon State. I like the Beavers in this one. I think the Beavers could possibly take money line, which right now, plus 562 standard, we're probably looking at plus 700 maybe on Bet Openly, plus 600 at least. That would be a spicy way for Oregon to join the Big Ten, immediately fall flat on their face. They haven't looked good. They almost lost to Boise State last week. That game was very, very losable. Just insane. So that's going to do it for college football. We're about 15 minutes in, so we will make the switch. Glass, drink water here. So NFL week 1 was, I don't know. I thought it was a little bit underwhelming at times. Just a little quick recap. Chiefs and Eagles, prime times wins, a bunch of flags, the bad field conditions in Brazil, procedural penalties all over the place. You know, Packers and Eagles and Chiefs. It was ugly. I didn't love it, but it is football, and I'm a little slut for football, so that's okay. On Sunday, we go Saints dominate the Panthers. The Vikings dominate the Giants. Cowboys over Browns. Buccaneers dominate. The 49ers looking terrific this week on Monday night. Rookie quarterbacks, not good overall. That's kind of my one takeaway. Daniels was okay. We'll talk about him. He's not why they lost. The Bills, Bears, Dolphins, and Lions probably all stole games that they shouldn't have. Now, I wrote this before watching the Bills last night against the Dolphins, which Tua, yikes. Jordan Love injury, CMC as well. Both those guys are looking like they're going to miss this weekend. I would say CMC, I'm probably 80-20 on CMC being out, which sucks for me. I have him in 2 fantasy leagues because I suck and drafted first. And then Jordan Love, I'm going to the Packer game this weekend, so I hope he plays. I don't expect him to play this week, next week, maybe not even the week after. It was the week of the running backs, though. It was great 600-yard performances. Lamar added 7, only 2 300-yard passers, so that was kind of interesting. 69 field goals in week 1, which is a lot. Steelers and 49ers both kicked 6. Our only 300-yard passers last week were Tua and Stafford. This week, already Tua has not done that. So let's get into our week 3 preview. I'm going to run through all the games. I've got 6 bets out right now, which obviously is subject to change. I think I finished 17 around kickoff because I didn't bet Sunday night, and then I bet 3 on Monday night. So yeah, it was a loaded weekend last weekend. Let's start early games. New Orleans and Dallas. This is a game that I'm super interested right now. Dallas laying 6. Total is 48.5. Total opened at 44.5 and has bet hard. Derek Carr played outstanding in week 1, although I don't think it's sustainable. 83% passing, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kamara, kind of back, 100-yard multi-purpose performance. Did find the end zone, which is great. Again, fantasy guy for me. Shout out, second-year cornerback Alontae Taylor had 3 sacks last week for the Saints. A corner, which is awesome. Dallas, we talked about it. They handled Cleveland. I don't know how to grade their performance. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson in a little bit, so I won't get too into that. But I really don't know how to rate Dallas after that game. They had 33 points, only 265 offensive yards. Kind of misleading. Dak was okay, not great. 179, a touchdown. His 5.6 yards per attempt, 23rd in the NFL. So he wasn't really pushing the ball down the field, but he didn't really have to. And they had a lot of short field going on. So couldn't get anything going on the ground. 102 yards on 25 carries. I would like Dallas, honestly, if it was a night game. But I think New Orleans can probably hang with a score. I think I would lean Saints. I'd consider a teaser if this gets out to like Saints plus 8.5, but that's just not happening. Indianapolis and Green Bay. Like I said, I am going to be in Green Bay this weekend. Indy is laying 3 on the road. Total now is down to 40.5. Matt LaFleur hinted at Jordan Love possibly kicking around the idea of being available this weekend. I don't think he's going to play. If he was playing, I think this is a full flip. I think you're 3 on one side to 3 on the other side, where Green Bay is laying 3. This is a game that I would imagine if Jordan Love does not play, I'm never going to bet the under in a game that I'm going to. That just sounds terrible, especially in a game like this where I'm going to need some boozing to watch Malik Willis spin it. But yeah, I don't have a play in the Indy Green Bay game. I'm sure I'll find something. I always do when I go to these, but it will probably be some sort of anytime touchdown. I do like Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs will be able to run. Joe Mixon had a lot of success running against that Indianapolis defense, and Josh Jacobs in the second half really did well against Philadelphia. So that's a guy maybe I'll key in on as we get a little bit closer to game time. Actually, I'm just curious. Well, I still got it. What is Josh Jacobs' number as far as his rushing prop? Because Joe Mixon did cook these guys last week. So Josh Jacobs, anytime touchdowns, plus 115, 16.5 attempts. Come on, action. I need his yards. We're looking, 65.5 rushing yards. I think we're going to be taking Josh Jacobs' rushing yards now that I have taken a little bit more look at it. I didn't really, it wasn't out when I was kind of grading these games earlier in the week, but I really like that. So yeah, we're going to go Josh Jacobs over rushing yards at some point. I'll get on that probably this morning. Let's talk Jets and the Tennessee Titans. So Tennessee, absolute disaster. Up 17-0. We're all sitting here laughing at the Bears, as we are ones to do. Block punt for a score. Pick 6 with probably the best pose of all time that I've ever seen in a picture. They gave up less than 150 yards, didn't give up a single touchdown, lost the game 24-17. It was unbelievable. Tony Pollard started off hot, handed him the ball, and then they just stopped. And then Levis got careless. You can't let Levis get careless. Obviously, the defense did great against a rookie quarterback in his first start, but he just found so many ways to lose that game. It's so tough for Tennessee. And right now, I forgot to mention, Tennessee is catching 4 at home. So right now, the Jets are favored. Jets didn't look great last week. They were outrushed 180-68, and that's without Christian McCaffrey in there. Outgained 401-266, lost the turnover battle 2-0. That's a turnover, or that's a losing recipe, rather. Rodgers showed some flashes of what he can do. He had the classic hard count, of course, to Lazard, which big shout out Allen Lazard. 6 catches, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. Love that. Total in this one right now is 41. I would consider the total maybe as an over, but the problem for me, and the reason I can't get behind New York right now, is not Aaron Rodgers. It's not anything to do with the defense. Obviously, the defense we graded very high. It didn't look good in week 1. It's Nathaniel Hackett. We watched it in the first half. This team was run, Garrett Wilson bailout. Run, Garrett Wilson bailout. They did it 3 times in their first 3 drives. And it's unbelievable because as a Packer fan, we watched him do the exact same thing with Devontae Adams. And I'll blame Aaron Rodgers as part of it. He can check out of those plays. You got to feel just the redundancy of, all right, we're going to run it, get nothing. Run it, get nothing. And then it was either Garrett Wilson or a dump off. I don't think they had any passes with any sort of depth in that first half. Things just look clunky for New York. I'm going to pass on this game. Like I said, if Nathaniel Hackett wasn't there, I'd feel a lot more comfortable and probably would be singing the praises of New York this week. But I am not, because Nathaniel Hackett still exists, and I can't believe I'm still talking about him as a coach in the National Football League. Let's move along. San Francisco at Minnesota. San Fran just played a clean football game on Monday night. Jordan Mason, 147 yards and a touchdown. Like I said, I have Christian McCaffrey. I thought I was super, super smart. So I see the CMC news. I immediately stick him on the IR and go out and grab the backup, the one that I know, Roendo. I think he saw like 2 or 3 snaps, and Mason was available. So I botched that. Unfortunately, I don't think it would have mattered because I think I still lost. But one thing to keep an eye on, Juwan Jennings has been dealing with an ankle this week. That's tough. Don't love that. He is probably the best 3rd down back that this league has seen, and it's in quite some time. Probably we're talking since Eckler, who was still playing multi downs. He caught all 5 of his targets for 64 yards last week. So defense. Couple turnovers against A-Rod. They were in his lap all night against what was supposed to be in a much improved. They talked about all the praises coming into this one. Oh, it's the New York offensive line. It's the New York offensive line. San Francisco had no issue getting pressure. I think they only got to him once, but they were on him all night. Minnesota on the surface dominated the Giants. I'm not fully sold. They benefit New York's 9 penalties for 95 yards, pair of bad Daniel Jones interceptions. These are things that they aren't going to get gifted in week 2. Sam Darnold looked good, though. Started 12 for 12. Actually was, getting 9 yards, 12 yards, 20 yards. I think he had a 40-yarder to Jefferson. So did look good spraying the ball around the field, but I think they overachieved against a bad team. So this is going to piss some people off. I took a San Francisco adjusted line, which I don't expect myself to fully get. Partially has been filled already. Laying 5.5 right now. I laid 3 for -128 on Bet Openly, which, feels like cheating. Derek Palmer popped in. 7-hour flight. Can everyone send me their emails in live chat if interested in learning more about Islam? Perfect. Love seeing that in the YouTube chat. What the fuck? All right. So yeah, like I said, I took San Francisco on the adjusted line. Moving on to Seattle. That threw me off so much. Seattle and New England. If you had these two facing off as 1-0 teams, congratulations. The Bengals completely fucked me last week, so that was outstanding work by them. Yeah, this is going to be really interesting. Seattle right now laying 3.5 on the road. Total in this one, 38.5. I know it's been bet under heavily. New England played some smash mouth football. They came in and they punched Cincinnati in the mouth. Played good defense. On the other side, Seattle, they handled Bo Nix and the Broncos. I'm not super thrilled about that. They were actually losing that game for a while there, then took a big lead, and then I think ended up winning by 7. It was more of a 13-point game late. Both sides, like I said, they ran the ball well. They combined for 320 yards. Vegas expects a super low-scoring affair. Again, 38.5 points. I do have to agree. Don't love a side. It feels like New England may be catching too many points at home. I don't grade Seattle very high. I would probably downgrade them after their performance last week. I don't know if I have to upgrade New England because Cincy is just not good in week ones. So this is going to be a no bet for me. A lot of people are going to take Seattle because there's no way New England can do it twice. And we're going to hear about New England taking out like 50% of the Circa Survivor pool, which will be funny. And that will always be a funny thing to watch. The Giants are at the Commanders. Even though probably far and wide the best rookie quarterback performance last week, Jaden Daniels, least amount of time to throw statistically across the league last weekend. So really impressive for him to do that under center. We talked about New York, their inability to get home. This could be an opportunity for Daniels to get a little bit comfortable in the pocket. The Commander defense, not great against Baker Mayfield. That's tough. Danny Dimes is not 1/3 the quarterback that Baker Mayfield is. I'm sorry. If you are a Danny Dimes believer at this point, I don't know what to tell you. I actually have a half unit on the Commies money line. I got them -110. So they're laying 1.5 right now. Total in that game is 43. I don't hate the total in this one. It feels like a game where both teams should be able to move the ball against each other. Two teams not great on defense. So I would take a look at the over possibly. I'd lean, but I do have a half unit on the Commanders. Next game, which has turned into a big one for me, the Chargers are at the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are getting bet like crazy, and I don't know why. The Panthers looked so bad in week 1 against the Saints, who, again, not a team that I grade super high. This week, they get to bring in a Charger team that looked spirited in week 1. Defense played great. The offense, the thing that blew me away, that the offensive line, which has been the biggest issue in Justin Herbert's career, looked terrific against what could be the best defensive line in the league in Las Vegas. So I've got the Chargers wheeling this teaser home. So I moved Buffalo out to 8.5. Move the Chargers down to just straight win it. The Chargers right now are laying 5. This thing opened at 6, then it got to 6.5. I bet it at 6.5. Then it moves all the way down to 5. Heavy move here. I just want to see if there's any overnight injury news that I'm missing here. God, Carolina looked so bad in their first week. Yeah, I don't see any news about anything there. So interesting line movement, but we're going to get that early on in the season. Let's move to Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. The Browns are headed into Jacksonville. It sucked, man. Jacksonville pissing down their leg. Absolutely sucked for those of us that had our team total. They fumble out of the back of the end zone that would have hit the team total, I believe, in the third quarter. So that sucked. This week, they get a team that I don't know if their quarterback could start in the SEC this weekend, much less the NFL. We call him the Nasty Man. And we'll continue to call him the Nasty Man because he now can't even play football. That's all he had. He's a shit human being. And now there's another allegation coming out, and there's been talks that, well, can they get out of his contract because there's a gal that has a pertinent video that the NFL needs to see concerning Deshaun Watson. So this game, in my opinion, feels like a good spot for Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville, again, completely pissed down their leg last week, and I am not going to try to defend that. They're laying 3 right now at home. The Browns got pimp slapped. The defense, which is supposed to be their big spot, were put in a lot of bad situations. So I do think the number that was allowed as far as the points are concerned, you can pin that a lot on the Cleveland offense. I don't pin that fully on the Cleveland defense. I like the under here. The under is 41.5. I think both teams will struggle to move the football. I think Cleveland's defense steps it up a notch. If Deshaun Watson's even playing, if it's Jameis Winston and I have an under, I'm going to try to get out of it because that's going to be complete chaos. But right now I have the under locked in at 41.5. That's my full unit under. I seemingly have one of those each week. We hit it last week with the field goal fest in Pittsburgh and Atlanta. So that'll be our under this week. Looking at Vegas and Baltimore. Vegas and Baltimore. I think this is our last game before we move to the lates. Get my live line here. There we are. Right now, Baltimore laying 8.5, 41.5 point total. Now, like I said, super shocked how the Chargers handled the Vegas D-line last week. Things did not look good for Las Vegas. They just looked terrible. Couldn't generate pressure. And if they can't generate pressure, it is going to be a very long season because it puts way too much stress on a second and third level that just aren't the same. The Ravens should be hungry for a win in this spot. Tough week 1 loss. Isaiah Likely missing it by that much. That's a tough way to start the season for all of us Ravens backers in week 1. Also coming into this one with 10 days to prepare. So Baltimore's offense, they need it because they didn't look great outside of Lamar scrambling. I don't think there was anything that told me they moved the ball well. So in my opinion, I like Lamar again. I'm going over 51.5 rushing yards. I think the Raiders D-line will generate pressure off the edges. We saw this in week 1. Jackson is not afraid to take off and run. I've got 3/4 of a unit on it again. Jackson at 54.5. We'll run through the late games quick here. It is already 6:33. Rams at Cardinals. We are staring at a bit of an interesting line that I find to be a little bit of a rat. Right now, the Arizona Cardinals are laying 1. I have taken the Rams as a half unit win. Last year, 26-9, 37-14 wins in LA's favor. LA was banged up last year. Obviously, Puka Nacua is not going to be around. The Cardinals, they can move the ball on offense. They'll move the ball on the ground. But their secondary is a steaming pile of ass. I think the Rams move the ball just as easily. And the Rams, I would give them the nod defensively versus Arizona. Arizona, again, pissed their game against Buffalo away last week. I think the Rams do have Arizona's number. I like LA in this matchup. I've got them for a half unit. Pittsburgh and Denver. You are not going to find me anywhere near this game. It is stinky as it gets. Pittsburgh's laying 2.5, 36.5 point total. When there's a total hanging around 36.5, as much as I'd love to bet the under in this, I can't do it. Cincinnati, Kansas City, teams that start 0-2, 11% chance to make the playoffs historically. So feels like a must win for Cincinnati. Kansas City laying as much as 6.5 probably before kickoff. Right now, that game is Cincinnati at 6, 48 point total. This game as a look ahead was closer to a pick 'em this summer. I got burned by the bet against Pat Mahomes card in week 1. You're not going to see me do it again. The total is going to be closer to 50 as kickoff approaches. And honestly, I may lean to an over. Kansas City, their defense is better than Cincinnati's. Cincinnati's offense sputtered in week 1. I don't know. I'm going to sit tight on that game. It should be should be interesting. I don't know. It may not be. It may just be Kansas City stomping out Cincinnati's season, which would be unfortunate for Cincinnati. And then they're going to have a whole offseason of question marks. Sunday Night Football, Chicago and Houston. Houston laying 6.5. This feels like a game that I want to tease. All right. I need to say something nice about Caleb Williams. He did not turn the ball over, nor did he make any game-losing decisions. But holy shit, 14 of 29, 93 yards, lowest average of any starter in week 1. The line's probably right on par. Like I said, Houston, money line, teaser. I think Chicago could hang around. I don't think this is what Caleb Williams is. I'm not stupid. I think he had a tough start to his career, which a lot of quarterbacks have done. So I'm not going to hang it on the kid completely. So I would lean Houston in that game. I don't have really a lean on the total. Looking at Monday night, we get Atlanta and Philly. I won't jump into this one as much because obviously I always post my Monday night stuff a little late. This game right now, Philly is laying 6.5. Total is 47. Feels like a lot of points. I think Atlanta underperformed. I do think they look better in week 2. Not great things seen about Kirk Cousins in week 1 as far as the tape goes, but again, it's week 1. We're not going to jump too far into it. So I'll have everything posted on Action, everything else posted article-wise on Lock Talk. Appreciate you guys for jumping in. Not too bad. Just went over by 6 minutes. We will talk to you next week, hopefully with our boy Joey. We will see if he is released.